What's up, movie fans? Hey guys, you want to feel a little bit old? Fun fact, Marvel has been making Disney Plus shows for 5 years. The first Marvel Disney Plus show, WandaVision, came out 5 years ago. That is so weird to me. Like, it really doesn't feel like it's been that long, but also, you look at the amount of shows that they've made, and yeah, no, that kind of makes sense. Marvel has made 18 Disney Plus shows, and today I wanted to do an updated ranking of them. Because, for one thing, I haven't done this in a while. The last time I ranked all of these shows was back in 2023. And for another thing, Marvel recently said that they are revamping their TV shows so that you no longer have to watch them to follow the plot of the MCU. And because of that, I think this is gonna be the last time I rank all of these shows. Like, I don't think I'm going to make an effort to keep up with every one of these shows anymore, so yeah, if there's a show that comes out in the future and it doesn't interest me, I'm probably just not gonna watch it. So I can't really rank all the shows if I haven't seen them all. So yeah, this is my last Marvel Disney Plus show ranking. Anyway, before we start, I just want to give a disclaimer. This is only Disney Plus original shows. So anything that is Marvel but isn't a Disney Plus original show will not be on this list. So there will be no Marvel Netflix series, there will be no Spider-Noir. This is only the 18 Disney Plus original shows. Number 18. Guys, I'm no stranger to bad takes. You know that, right? Like, I have had several times in the past where I have had a terrible take on a movie or TV show, and then I realize and backtrack on it later. I originally said that I liked Ant-Man Quantumania and Thor Love and Thunder. I originally loved Rise of Skywalker. I originally gave Andor a mixed review. I have had some bad takes in my time on YouTube. And here's another one. Do you guys remember that in 2023, I defended Secret Invasion? Yeah, no, looking back on that, I don't even know why. I can pretty much only remember the bad stuff in this show. Now, I don't think the show is the worst thing ever. It has some redeeming qualities. I like Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn's performances in it and their chemistry with each other. But this is just such a bizarre series. On paper, turning Secret Invasion into a spy thriller series isn't that bad of an idea, but in order to do that, it has to actually be thrilling. There needs to be tension. There needs to be paranoia. You need to feel like anyone can be a Skrull at any time. And in the Secret Invasion show that we got, there's one Skrull reveal, and it's super obvious. Beyond that, I think Secret Invasion is one of the many 6-episode MCU Disney Plus shows that just feels very rushed. There are several character relationships in the show that are compelling on paper, like Talos with his daughter, or Fury with his Skrull wife, but in execution, they feel very rushed and underdeveloped. They killed off Maria Hill in this show in the first episode for shock value. And then the worst thing about Secret Invasion is its finale. And this is an opinion that I have had even since the show first came out, and I was defending it. The finale of Secret Invasion is terrible. It is the worst episode in all of Marvel Disney Plus TV. They decided to conclude their spy thriller series with a big CGI fight where Emilia Clarke gets all of the superpowers. That's something that we don't acknowledge enough. Emilia Clarke got all of the superpowers in the finale of this show. Where is she? Why hasn't she been in anything since this? She could literally one-punch every single supervillain. Alright, this one's gonna be a little bit of a hot take, and I think that a lot of people are going to be very, very surprised about this, but at number 17, I have Marvel Zombies. This is a 4-episode animated miniseries that came out late last year, and a ton of people really, really liked it, and I kinda just thought it was mediocre. I don't know, it's like I didn't necessarily hate anything that happened in this show, but I just thought it was a huge missed opportunity. If we're going to do a Marvel Zombies show, why only 4 episodes long? Why is every episode basically just the same story of the characters go to a place, zombies attack, some characters join their crew, some characters die? Why is it just that recycled over and over again? Like, I just felt like there was no actual creativity or passion behind Marvel Zombies. This kind of just felt like Marvel said, okay, we need content for Disney Plus, make a Marvel Zombies show. That's what really bothers me about Marvel Zombies. This felt like a soulless corporate product. I didn't really care for it. Number 16, a very similar show, Eyes of Wakanda, a 4-episode animated miniseries that I am quite certain around 6 people in the world actually watched, and I'm one of them. Eyes of Wakanda is an animated anthology series that is exploring the lives of different Wakandan warriors throughout history, and that's kind of a cool premise for a show. But once again, if you're going to do that, why not actually make a TV show about it? Why only make it a 4-episode thing? Like, that just feels like such a missed opportunity, and once again, it makes this just feel like content for the sake of content. So, yeah, Marvel Zombies and Eyes of Wakanda are 2 shows that aren't even particularly bad, but I just couldn't get past the but why-ness of them. Number 15, Echo. In my opinion, in retrospect, is kind of one of the funniest shows that Marvel has ever made, because I swear Marvel regretted making Echo as they were making it. They decided to only give this show 5 episodes, even though most MCU Disney Plus shows get at least 6, they decided to drop it on Disney Plus all in one day. And then after realizing that nobody really cared about it, they decided to make their entire marketing strategy behind the show, hey, did you know that this show is TVMA? That's right, this show's gonna have so much blood and swearing and gore. This is gonna be the most TVMA show ever. And then the actual show had, like, occasional little drops of blood in it, and that was pretty much it. Like, I don't know, it just seemed like Marvel had absolutely no confidence in Echo as a series, and honestly, I can't really blame them that much, because it's just not a very good show. It's not the worst thing ever. Once again, it has redeeming qualities. I like Maya as a character. I like her family. I think the show adds some interesting elements to Kingpin. But this series feels very rushed, probably because it's only 5 episodes long, And also, this is another show that has a disappointing finale where, like, Maya gets superpowers in the final episode, and I swear to this day, like 2 years later, I still don't know what her powers are. They are so poorly defined in this series. Number 14, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. She-Hulk is a show that is interesting to me because it is simultaneously bad while also being very overhated. Like, the way that people talk about She-Hulk, you would think that this show broke into their house, murdered their puppy, knocked over their favorite lamp, and then shot them 37 times. But in reality, it's just kind of mid. It is a legal comedy show, and I think the concept of doing a legal comedy show in a superhero universe is actually kind of cool, but in execution, it's just not smart enough. The jokes aren't funny enough to sustain this premise, and the court cases just aren't interesting, so it kind of failed at the two things it was trying to do. I still like Jennifer Walters as a character. I think she's kind of funny, and I also like a lot of the guest appearances in this show, like Hulk, Abomination, Wong, Daredevil. But overall, it's still a very mediocre show, and I do understand why a lot of people don't like it. Okay, there's a big gap between these next two shows on the list. I think that this is where we cross over from the bad category to the shows that I actually think are okay. So starting us off there, number 13 is Miss Marvel. I think Miss Marvel is a show that is very, very frustrating because there's a lot of things in this series that I really, really like, mixed with a lot of stuff that I'm not a fan of. I really liked Kamala Khan as a character. I think she is one of the best characters in the MCU post-Endgame. She's funny, she's charismatic. I think that Iman Vellani knocked this character out of the park. I really like her, and I really like the show when it is just this fun, small-scale, lighthearted, coming-of-age series all about her learning to use her powers, discovering stuff about herself. The show has a very interesting and unique visual style where they kind of use like 2D animation to show what's going on in her head. So, like, yeah, there's stuff about the show that I do really enjoy. The second half of the show is very, very generic, where suddenly it goes from being this lighthearted, coming-of-age series to this big series where there's this race of aliens that are trying to destroy the world, and Kamala has to protect the world and stand up to them, and there's time travel involved, and I just feel like it weaved too far into generic superhero territory, even though it started out as a very fun, lighthearted series. Number 12, Ironheart, another show that is so overhated in my opinion. The way that people talk about Ironheart, you would think it kidnapped them off the street, drove them out to the desert, put a gun to their head, and forced them to work for the cartel. But in reality, once again, it's just kind of mid. I think Ironheart is actually a really interesting series. I think that Riri Williams is a compelling character, and I like the fact that she actually kind of fails her character arc. Like, the entire show is about her trying to get over her grief over her best friend and stepdad getting murdered, and by the end of the show, she fails to get over that grief and makes a literal deal with the devil to bring back her best friend. And I think that's kind of a fascinating change of pace for a Marvel origin story. With that being said, this is another 6-episode Marvel Disney Plus show that feels very rushed, where they just did not make the best use of their time in this 6-episode series, and as a result, there are massive character changes that feel like they come out of nowhere, especially with Obadiah Stane's son in this series. The Hood is an interesting villain, but his motivations aren't really revealed until the last episode, and while you're watching it, you're kind of like, why didn't we learn all of this stuff about this character earlier in the series? This feels a little bit too little, too late. I still think Ironheart is a lot better than people give it credit for, but it is another very rushed, haphazardly thrown together Marvel show. Number 11, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, perhaps the most frustrating Marvel Disney Plus show, because there's so much in here that I really, really like. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the show that made Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes two of my favorite MCU characters. Like, before this show, I liked them, but they were just kind of Captain America's two best friends. I didn't really think too much about them. And then this show gave them so much depth, it gave them character arcs, and it gave them honestly more chemistry with each other than they ever had with Steve Rogers. Beyond that, the show also has John Walker, who I think is a very compelling character, where they kind of analyzed what would happen if a normal guy was suddenly given the pressure of becoming Captain America, and you just kind of see him break under that pressure. I think that's very interesting. I like seeing Zemo again. The problem with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that this show's story is occasionally very, very confusing. If you don't know, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was reworked a lot behind the scenes because there was a plot line in this show originally involving a global pandemic, and then as they were making the show, a global pandemic started, and they were kind of like, well, crap. So they had to rework a lot of stuff, and I think you can feel that kind of in the middle of this show, where a lot of the show's story just doesn't really line up. It feels very half-baked. Beyond that, I am not a fan of the villains of this show at all. I think the Power Broker is such an obvious and underwhelming villain twist, and I think Carly Morgenthau is such a strange villain, because I swear this show is trying to convince me that she is a different character from who she is. Like, the show is telling me she's not a terrorist, she's not a bad person, yet in this series, she is murdering people and blowing stuff up in pursuit of political gain. That's terrorism! So yeah, just a very, very strange series, but still, it has a lot of stuff I really like in it. Number 10, I have What If? Perhaps the hardest show on this entire list to rank, because this is another series that is just so very frustrating. I think What If is just a brilliant premise for a TV show. What would happen if just one thing in the Marvel Universe had changed? What would that lead to? And it's an anthology series where you can explore different versions of that premise infinitely. There are literally infinite ideas for storylines for this show. You're only limited by your imagination, and yet the writer's imagination is just so weird. Sometimes they will come up with scenarios that are actually awesome. Like, what if Doctor Strange turned evil? What if the Avengers were assassinated before they formed? What if the Avengers formed in a different time period? And different concepts like that are super awesome. And then other times, the writer's imagination is like, what if Thor threw a party? What if we had an episode where Agatha and Kamal Nanjiani made a movie together? What if bestiality? That's a thing that we really needed to explore in the MCU. What if we got some of that going on? It's just such a weird series because it's like total whiplash. Sometimes you'll watch an episode and you're like, oh my gosh, that was super awesome, more of that. And sometimes you'll watch an episode and you're like, what were they even thinking when they made this? And then there's even episodes that kind of mix the two, where it's like, yes, this was a good idea, but you fumbled it so hard. Like, why did you make the zombies episode comedic? Why did you bring back Captain Carter 7 times in this show? Once was enough. Like, yeah, it's just a very, very bizarre series, and it had to come down kind of in the middle of this list, because it is kind of the most mixed bag show on this list. Number 9, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. If you haven't seen this show, this is an animated Spider-Man show that is essentially a what-if scenario played out for an entire series, where this entire show's central thesis is, what if Norman Osborn mentored Peter Parker instead of Tony Stark? And I think that is a very interesting premise that the show does a very good job with. Where at the start of the show, it seems like Norman Osborn is actually kind of a good mentor. Like, he seems like he cares about Peter, and he seems like he has his best interests at heart. And then as the show goes on, you kind of realize, oh no, this is still Norman Osborn. He's still going to turn into Green Goblin one day, and you start to go down this dark path where he starts corrupting Peter a little bit, and I think that is very, very interesting. That is a what-if scenario that is better than most of the scenarios in the What If show, and I think that it is explored very, very well in this series. But the other thing that's cool about Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is that it's also just a normal animated Spider-Man show. Explores Spider-Man pretty well. It has, like, a lot of his classics rogues gallery. It has some amazing characters from previous Spider-Man media, while also introducing new ones. It gives Tombstone an entire subplot that is way more interesting than it has any right to be. And so, yeah, I think this is a nice what-if scenario, along with also just being a really fun Spider-Man show. Number 8, Hawkeye, a show that I think is severely underrated, where when people talk about Hawkeye, they often group it in with a lot of the other 6-episode MCU Disney Plus shows and say that this is another disappointing, underwhelming one. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I think Hawkeye is kind of the gold standards for how to do this type of show correctly. Where Hawkeye isn't overly ambitious, it is telling a story that can be told in 6 episodes, and it's just a really fun story all about Clint Barton trying to get back home in time for Christmas and getting involved in this crazy big crime conspiracy and having to mentor this girl. That is a fun storyline, and I think the show is really powered by the chemistry of its two leads, where I think that Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld are just great in this show. Kate Bishop, in general, is another one of my favorite MCU characters post-Endgame. And then the show also factors in Yelena. You have Maya Lopez in here, who is a very compelling antagonist. And then you have Kingpin showing up for an episode. And yeah, it's just this really breezy, fun superhero Christmas series that I think a lot of people are way too hard on. Number 7, Moon Knight. This actually might make some people really mad because Moon Knight is generally considered to be one of the best Marvel Disney Plus shows. For me, I think that of the 6-episode Marvel Disney Plus shows, this is easily the best one. Like, the ones that just went for 6 episodes, this is the one that I still look back on the most fondly. Where right from the very first episode, you can just tell this show is built different, where it just gets you invested in the story of Stephen Grant and the really weird occurrences that are going on in his life. It intrigues you with all of these different mysteries about what's going on, and it manages to just be a really interesting, unique series that is not afraid to get really, really weird, where this entire show is all about, like, Egyptian gods using people as avatars and this weird cult that is trying to commit genocide against everybody who has ever done anything bad. And then I think that Mark Spector and Stephen Grant are two incredibly interesting characters, and I think Oscar Isaac's performance is incredible because he managed to convince me that these two are different characters with their own motivations, their own personalities, and I think their bond is kind of a big part of what makes this show work. I think Asylum is one of the best episodes of any Marvel Disney Plus show. I think what brings the show down a little bit is I do think the show loses a little bit of momentum after its first episode, and I don't think it really gains that momentum back until you get to the Tomb and Asylum episodes. I just feel like the show reveals a little bit too much too fast in episode 2, and it doesn't really recover from that until a few episodes later. For the most part, Moon Knight is easily one of the best shows on this list. Number 6, Agatha All Along. The show that I think is super, super impressive because it managed to make me eat my words. Before Agatha All Along came out, I was insisting that this show was not going to be any good at all. I was not excited for it. I kept saying, why are they making a show about Agatha Harkness? Like, she was a fine side villain, but she doesn't need an entire show. I was a huge doubter in Agatha All Along. And then the show came out, and it won me over very, very quickly. I think the thing that works so well about Agatha All Along is that this is a show that it feels like somebody really wanted to make. It is a show that has so much passion and creativity behind it, where it's taking these concepts about, like, witches and covens, and it's kind of bringing them into the modern day, analyzing how they would work now, how their mythology would work now, bringing together all of these different characters with all of these different interesting motivations and backstories and putting them on this very fun journey together where they're going down the witch's road, going through all of these deadly trials. The trials themselves are very creative, and the show manages to create so much tension because Agatha all along is not afraid to kill off characters. This show gets very, very dark. And I just think it's a very fun adventure. I also think it makes Agatha Harkness a way more interesting character than she has any right to be, where it kind of analyzes her backstory, why she is the way she is, and it never really tries to redeem her, but it does make you feel bad for her and kind of understand how she became the person she did. It builds out her relationship with Billy Maximoff a lot. I think the show has a lot of really interesting twists and turns. I am a big Agatha All Along fan. I think that this is easily one of the most interesting Marvel Disney Plus shows. Number 5, Daredevil Born Again. For reference, if I were to rank the 2 seasons of Daredevil Born Again separately on this list, I would probably put season 1 lower, somewhere below Hawkeye probably, and I would put season 2 up in the top 3 because I think season 2 is just a massive improvement over the first season of Born Again. Judging the entire show, I think Daredevil Born Again is a show that I am very, very happy exists because I think this show, while not as good as the original Netflix Daredevil series, did manage to add a lot to it by diving deep into what Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk are up to years later, kind of establishing more interesting elements to their characters by doing this storyline where they've both given up their double lives and they're both slowly drawn back into it and drawn back into their rivalry with each other. I'm really happy that I got to see Dex become Bullseye after the events of Daredevil Season 3. I'm really happy that I got to see the Mayor Kingpin story arc, which I think in general was just a brilliant story arc that they managed to masterfully execute and escalate over the course of these 2 seasons, where by the time you get to the end of it, it is just this epic, all-out war that I really, really enjoyed. I'm really happy that I got to see Matt Murdock confess to being Daredevil in front of the world and go to prison, and I'm really, really excited to see how they follow up on that in season 3. And then beyond that, it's just a really cool show because we're getting to see all of these different characters from the Netflix shows come back, like Punisher and Jessica Jones. I think Daredevil Born Again is a really cool series. Now, it does have problems. Once again, I think Born Again Season 1 is very, very flawed. But still, I really, really like this show. And I think if Season 3 is just as good as Season 2, and if the show maintains this level of quality going forward, Born Again is going to be way higher up on this list. Number 4, WandaVision. The very first Marvel Disney Plus show is still one of my favorites, and I think this show is honestly kind of underrated today. I think WandaVision is an impressive series because it was a massive swing from Marvel where they decided to make their first Marvel Disney Plus show, this very, very niche series that is kind of this dark mystery series, but at the same time, it's also a sitcom, and it's like going through these different sitcom eras and changing things up in every episode. Like, that was a big risk to do for their first series, but it paid off because this was a show that captured everyone's attention. I honestly have a lot of nostalgia for WandaVision because this is a show where people were talking about it and theorizing about it between every episode, and each week I was watching like 20 different YouTube videos kind of dissecting stupid individual little details in this show and analyzing what could this mean? What could this mean? Is Mephisto behind it all? And it's a show that I think was so much fun to experience when it was first coming out because everybody was talking about WandaVision and what it could mean. And I also think WandaVision is just a really, really emotionally compelling show where as you get to the second half of the series and you start to dive deep into what it all really means, like what is going on here, why Wanda is creating this world, what's going on with her grief, it becomes this really, really profound series all about moving on from grief. And I think the last 2 episodes of this show are way more emotionally powerful than people give them credit for. They almost got me to cry when this show first came out. So, yeah, I really, really like WandaVision. I am still a fan of it 5 years later. Number 3, Wonder Man. Wonder Man is still pretty new, so it is possible that in the future I'm going to regret putting it this high, but I don't think I am. I think Wonder Man is a very special series because while it is a Marvel series, it's not a superhero show. At its core, this is a show about 2 struggling actors, one of whom happens to have superpowers, trying to land their dream roles, and in the process, they form this bond with each other and become friends. And I think Wonder Man is just a really fun series. Like, it is this very breezy, lighthearted comedy series that isn't swinging for the fences. It's just trying to be this fun, small-scale show. And as a result, it's one of my favorite shows that has come out of the MCU since they started making the Disney Plus shows. Like, where so many of these shows feel a little bit corporate and soulless, Wonder Man just shines as this legitimate passion project from Destin Daniel Cretton. And I think that Simon is just a really compelling character, probably another one of my favorite MCU characters post-Endgame, and then Trevor Slattery, who was just a complete throwaway character in Iron Man 3 and Shang-Chi, is now another one of my favorite MCU characters because of how much they built out him and gave him so much depth. I think Wonder Man is a show that just managed to stand out by just being a really sincere, fun series. Number 2, Loki. Everyone saw this one coming. Everyone knew that Loki was going to be high on this list. Loki just simply is built different from all of the other MCU shows. Loki is a show where it feels like a creative team had a story that they wanted to tell, knew exactly how they wanted to tell it, and just told a really compelling story over the course of 2 short 6-episode seasons that really stuck with me and a lot of other people because of how emotionally complex and surprisingly powerful it really is. The concept of the Time Variance Authority is just a brilliant one, where what if there was an organization dedicated to making sure the time stream flowed the way it was supposed to? And I think the show builds out the Time Variance Authority and explores it very well over 2 seasons. The show has a ton of really great characters like Mobius and Sylvie, who the audience is instantly endeared to, and those characters have compelling arcs that conclude in earned ways over the course of 2 seasons. The show explores all of these surprisingly deep philosophical questions, and then the best thing about Loki is Loki himself, where this show took Loki, who was already an amazing character in my opinion, and it turned him into one of my top 5 favorite characters in the entire MCU. I'm not kidding, by the way. Number 1, Matt Murdock. Number 2, Tony Stark. Number 3, Rocket Raccoon. Number 4, Loki. Number 5, Peter Parker. That's my top 5. It just gave him this really compelling arc where he starts the show as the same narcissist that he's always been and ends it as this selfless person who is willing to sacrifice everything to save the people he cares about. And every step of that character arc feels completely natural and earned. So, yeah, I think Loki is easily the best MCU Disney Plus show. But I didn't say MCU Disney Plus shows at the start of this video. I said Marvel Disney Plus shows. Number 1 is X-Men 97. I love X-Men 97. I have already talked extensively in the past about how much I love X-Men 97. This show is my favorite piece of X-Men media that I have ever watched. My experience with the X-Men is basically just the Fox movies and the 90s series, and this show managed to take all of the characters that have been neglected in the Fox series for decades, and it made me fans of them. Like, even the 90s series, which I liked, didn't get me as excited about these characters as this show did, where I am now a massive Cyclops fan, a massive Jean Grey fan, a massive Storm fan, a Rogue fan, a Gambit fan, a Nightcrawler fan. I love Nightcrawler so much. He's the best X-Men, and if you disagree, you're wrong. I think this show just managed to build out each of these characters and make them so much more interesting to me. But the other thing that I love about X-Men 97 is that it explores the ideology that has been a part of X-Men media since the very beginning in a more interesting way than I have ever seen it explored before. In most X-Men media, it is clear-cut. Professor X is the good guy, Magneto is the bad guy, he's the one who's using violence and being negative, and Charles is the one who just wants to be peaceful. And then this show takes a look at that and it goes a little bit deeper where it's like, okay, but what if Magneto has a point? If humans really just will not accept the mutants, no matter what they do, no matter how many times they save them, no matter how peaceful they are, at what point do you just snap and become Magneto? And I think that that is so interesting. It is a moral conflict that is explored so well in this show, mainly because this show is just so much more dark and mature than you are expecting it to be. And then beyond that, the animation in this show is incredible. Like, imagine if Invincible looked like this show. Like, as much as I defend Invincible's animation, and I don't think it's as bad as people give it credit for, just imagine if it looked like this show. Like, yeah, I think X-Men 97 is easily the best Marvel Disney Plus show, and it easily had to come in at number 1 on this list. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what is your favorite Marvel Disney Plus show, and see ya, movie fans.